today. As many of you have sat in long hearings in the past and heard similar bills like HB 800, which I understand is heading to the House floor, the comparison between HB 930. First of all, my name is Keith English. I represent the 68th District, North St. Louis County. House Bill 930 allows doctors to use their discretion in recommending medical cannabis, whereas HB 800 restricts it to specific conditions interfering in the doctor-patient relationship. HB 930 also relatively free entry of firms into the medical cannabis market instead of arbitrarily capping cultivation centers and dispensaries at 30 each. This will provide greater access and lower prices for patients, which is very key. House Bill 930 allows the department to establish a fee for registering a grow site, but it is only meant to cover the administrative cost of the program, unlike House Bill 800, which charges $25,000 simply to apply. House Bill 930 allows for similar firms than HB 800, so there is no need for an asset requirement. House Bill 930 allows for patients to cultivate up to 6 mature plants, which guarantees access for rural or shut-in patients. House Bill 800 does not allow for any home cultivation. House Bill 930 is a pilot program that will expire in 6 years if the legislature does not renew it. And that was the #1 reason why I didn't want to hear the other bill, because it was a pilot program bill. And I appreciate your, again, consideration and offer any questions at this time.
Since this committee's already passed House Bill 800, and I appreciate that you talked to us a little bit about the differences between the two. One of the primary concerns that this committee heard when we heard House Bill 800 was that if we did not limit what medical marijuana could be used for, it would essentially open the door for a doctor who had just a belief that medical marijuana could be used for anything to have a rush of patients, all of whom would come to them for any and every malady or symptom and ask for some marijuana to be prescribed. Do you see that concern?
No, I don't.
Okay. Do you think that has been an issue in other states?
I don't believe so.
Okay. All right. Further questions for the bill handler? Representative Munsell. Go ahead.
In testimony on the HB 800, I believe there was, for information purposes only, there was a gentleman here from Colorado, and correct me if I'm wrong, other members, that he said when they were passing a law for medical purposes, the question was asked, was there any so-called malpractice from any doctors going on? And he said the first year that they did, I believe they said there was 4 doctors that were prosecuted and lost their license because they were issuing it for purposes that were not under the law. Do any members, do you recall that, or was you there?
I was not in the hearing, but
okay.
As we heard in the last bill, you're going to have people that are going to do dirty no matter what the business
right.
is, I'm sure.
Right. I was just wondering if you had heard that, or maybe any questions to any of the other members that was correct. So to try to elaborate on your question, Chairman. So thank you.
Further questions for the bill handler? Seeing none, can I get a show of hands? All those here to testify in favor? All those here to testify in opposition? All right, again, we will limit testimony to 2 minutes apiece. I believe we are going back into session at 2:30. It's about 1:40 right now, so we've got 50 minutes before we have to adjourn. If we can get all the testimony in, that'd be great. 2 minutes apiece, no duplicative testimony if possible, and make sure to fill out a witness form. We'll go ahead and take whoever wants to go first.
Thank you, it's an honor. My name is Tom Mundell. I'm the former state commander for the Veterans of Foreign Wars, as well as the sitting vice chairman for MAVO, the Missouri Association of Veteran Organizations, and the incoming chairman for MAVO. And I would like to let all of you know that all of the individuals within those organizations that I have spoke to particularly and discussed this in great length with them, they are very supportive of this bill as well as the other bill. The concern that we saw was that they were all concerned about not being able to, the users, the patients being able to grow something of their own. And I can understand both sides of that question, but this one takes care of that. The other thing is, within the descriptions of the debilitating medical conditions, I don't know if this one sentence covers it, but they do not mention PTSD in here. And they mention everything else, but they come up with number 34 on page 53, and they say any other serious medical condition or its treatment approved by attending physician. I feel that PTSD should definitely, maybe that does cover it, that's fine with me if it does, but I think we should definitely consider the growth opportunity for the patient, because there's going to be a lot of people in outside areas that can't get to places, as well as making sure that I think everything is really well done in this bill also. I really do. I'm very supportive of this, and I'm no longer uncomfortable with supporting this issue. I've got a lot of education experience recently in different states, and they are not having big issues whatsoever with the doctors. Like you said, 4 out of thousands in Colorado were bad, and they got them. And I think the state and the representatives and the senators are developing a tremendous bill that will work and will protect us all from the bad boys and girls out there that's going to try to cause problems.
Questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you, sir.
And for your service. Further testimony in favor?
Good afternoon. My name is Candace Goldsby. I'm from Kansas City, and I'm in favor of the bill. I have a terminally ill child. I'm speaking today on behalf of my son Harper and thousands of individuals in Missouri that would benefit from medical marijuana. My son is 4 years old and was diagnosed with a rare form of epilepsy just 10 days after his birth. Like I said, he is 4 years old now. He has been seizing since he was in utero. Today, currently, he usually has about 4 to 5 clusters of tonic-clonic seizures per day. Most people know those as grand mal seizures. So, and then the cluster is about 10 to 20 seizures in about a 4 to 5 minute period. So he has those as well as 10 single myoclonic seizures per day. He has severe developmental delays. He's wheelchair bound, eats with a mechanical pump via tube that was surgically placed in his stomach. He cannot speak, he cannot use his arms and legs independently. We have to move him and position him and that sort of thing. Due to the seizures, he does choke and aspirate on his secretions. I've had to resuscitate my son at least weekly for the last 2 years. His syndrome is called Ohtahara syndrome. Children statistically live very short life, about 6 months of age. Harper is 4 and a half. He'll be 5 in July. So he is unique in that stance. However, his time is running out. He was just diagnosed with respiratory insufficiency. His body is being poisoned by high carbon dioxide levels. He has to wear a BiPAP mask certain times of the day to keep those levels down. The seizures have caused his brain tissue to degenerate very fast. He cannot breathe on his own correctly, so he does have to have the aid of the mask. Despite all these things, he's a very happy boy. He loves preschool. He always has a nurse with him wherever he goes, as well as myself. He loves his puppy, loves his sister, loves music, loves to play outside. At any point in time, Harper is on at least 4 pharmaceutical anti-seizure medications. In addition to these pharmaceuticals, he is on 5 medications that are used to offset the side effects of the seizure medications. Side effects of seizure meds include but are not limited to liver failure, loss of bone density, which he did just fracture his wrist 2 weeks ago, and renal failure. All of these medications combined cause fatigue, loss of gross motor control, paralysis, and additional seizures are caused, just to name a few. I know we are kind of, this is Harper, picture. And I know we are supposed to be brief. I do have several pictures, several instances of children that are outside the state of Missouri that have been on numerous pharmaceutical drugs, have had 100+ seizures per day, are now on medical marijuana and are pharmaceutical and seizure-free and are living and thriving. And I'm asking for your help here to vote yes. My son does need this. He deserves this. He can be living and thriving thanks to medical marijuana. I know it's a possibility, and I do appreciate your time.
Couple questions. Last year, we passed a CBD oil bill that dealt with epilepsy.
Yes, sir.
Has Harper ever had an opportunity to try that?
He has not had an opportunity to try that. I actually was the first parent to send in the registration papers. You have to get a registration card in order to have a prescription. I was the first parent to send that paperwork in to Children's Mercy Hospital in Kansas City. The hospital will not back his neurologist, saying that there's not enough research done. They don't agree with that sort of therapy. So if our neurologist were to sign on the line to even give me a registration card, he would lose his license. So the wordage in that bill is horrible. It doesn't support what we need. It doesn't support the neurologist. It doesn't help. It's useless.
And then earlier this session, we passed, this committee passed House Bill 800,
Yes.
also dealing with medical marijuana. I believe in the 12 illnesses or diagnoses listed in there, we included epilepsy. Is it your understanding Harper would fall under House Bill 800 as well as under this House bill?
I 100% cannot say that I am familiar with the policies of that bill. I do know that with Harper and with others that have what Harper has, they also have like cerebral palsy and things like that. So this would just encompass everyone. Another instance with this bill is the dispensary issue. I know Canada's not in our country, but for an example is Canada has 25 dispensaries total, and that's about 2 dispensaries per province. Their wait list for this medication is long, months long. And if you have a limited amount of dispensaries here in Missouri, if there's an issue with quality control, with pesticide residue, with mold, you can't use that plant for the medication, so then people can't get help. So the more dispensaries, the better, and that's addressed more in this bill.
Questions for the witness? Representative Cross.
Okay, ma'am. You mentioned your son that he's 4.5.
Yes.
Harper is.
Yes.
Okay, and he doesn't have use of his hands or his arms. He's wheelchair is what he is.
He is.
I'm guessing, and I don't have a child like that or have to deal with that. So he's a spoon fed, I assume, or is he on a tube? Did you say?
He's on a gastrostomy. He had a tube placed in his stomach via surgery, and he uses a pump, and we pour formula in the bag, and it's pumped through the pump, and it hangs on his chair or wherever he's sitting. That's how he eats.
Okay. Did you mention he has some type of a chronic respiratory problem, ma'am?
He does. Respiratory insufficiency. It's where your brain, you breathe in oxygen, breathe out carbon dioxide, and if the parts of your brain that control your breathing, if the tissue is gone, you can't regulate your breathing appropriately. Therefore, you have a lot of built up carbon dioxide. You and I, just walking around, we range from 35 to 45. Harper was in the 80s.
Okay. Now, so if I'm understanding you right, ma'am, this young boy that you're saying his time's running out, he's terminal. I think you mentioned the term.
Yes, sir.
On this young man. By letting this man, and I said mom or dad would have to administer this marijuana.
Yes.
To smoke.
Not 100%. No, not to smoke. It would be. I know that children that do this sort of medication, they do it in syringes. So that's something we could do.
Okay. I want to clarify that. So you're saying that the smoking is not in. It's more or less administering through an oral dosage, if I understand you right.
Yes, sir.
And you think what's going to happen by administering this through an oral dosage would help prolong this young man's life. Is that correct?
Absolutely. It could. I mean, there are hundreds of children that have benefited from this. They go from not talking, not walking, basically in a vegetative state, to actually taking steps and speaking because they've been on medical marijuana. And it's not just a possibility,
Through an
it's a fact.
you say they depend on medical marijuana through an oral dosage? Is that what you're saying to me, ma'am?
Yes,
I want
sir.
to clarify. Okay.
100% oral.
Now, you commented earlier just a while ago, you said something about children and individuals having as many as 100 seizures a day.
Yes, sir.
My gosh, ma'am, I don't see how they can even be around. They have 100 seizures a day.
The human
Over a
body
period of time.
is, I 100% agree with you. Before Harper was on anti-seizure medications, he was having 300 to 400 per day, and that was,
300 to 400 a day this young man has had.
yes, sir.
Sitting in a wheelchair.
Well, he was 10 days old at this time.
10 days old, have about 300 to 400 seizures a day.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Further testimony in favor?
Hello. My name is Sarah Hollingsworth. I'm a United States veteran and I'm really, really sick. I'm asking you guys to pass this. I'm obviously in favor. I've been to other states. Cannabis helps my conditions. Let me start from the beginning. The 2-minute marks got me excited. I was deployed. I started getting sick almost immediately when I got back. I've got severe gastrointestinal issues. I've got ulcerative colitis, all that are attributed to my time overseas. The reason that this bill in particular is more important to me than other ones is because it allows patients to grow. Now for somebody like me, that's very important because I have enough chemicals in my body from my exposures that I can't take anything. Pesticides, the way it's grown is so important to me. So if I can grow it myself and I can medicate myself, I can save my life. Are you guys aware of what a medical marijuana refugee is? I don't know. So basically what a refugee is someone who has to leave their home state in order to go to another state to seek medicine. This is the stage that I'm in. I've already left Missouri once as a veteran. I left to fight for this country. Now I want to stay in Missouri to fight for these rights because it's a human right. I should be able to pick what kind of medication. I should be able to grow my medication. And I apologize, I shake a lot. I've got a lot of neurological issues. All of which cannabis help. There are so many studies. There are more studies on cannabis than any other pharmaceutical drug. I just, please vote for this. This would change my life, not to have to move to Oregon, not to have to uproot my family, be able to grow my own medicine. You're changing lives, you're saving lives. And I just ask this group of people take that into account.
How long have you suffered from this?
I started getting sick in around 2004, but it's the last probably 3 or 4 years that have been the worst.
When I see traditional medicine has not alleviated the
No,
symptoms?
I was on 13 different prescription medications at one point. I was down to about 110. I'm 5'7". I'm 150 is healthy for me. Just because I couldn't keep on weight. I went to a medical state and I used cannabis. I was able to recover and at least gain weight again. I'm getting sick again. I'm starting to have where I'm shaking all over and I'm going to Oregon because I can't get it in my home state.
How often do you travel out of state?
And when I can afford it.
And then when you travel out of state, do you treat out of state and then come back here without it and just
Yeah.
go for periods of time?
I could break the law, you know, but
And obviously, I don't want you to say,
I'm trying not to.
I'm trying to understand right now
I
what,
think right now, if I were to medicate in the way that in order for me to function and work and keep a job, for me to medicate, I would have to break Missouri law. I would have to commit a felony. I would have jail time for the amount of cannabis that I would need to stay healthy.
in your opinion, or if you have a doctor, how much do you need on a daily or weekly basis in order to?
Well, it depends how I medicate. First off, there was a question about smoking. When you smoke, nobody smokes. Smoke's gone. So when you smoke, you only get about 12% of the medication. So most doctors and physicians aren't going to recommend that. They're going to recommend an edible or something called Rick Simpson oil, which is a super concentrated oil from cannabis. Now, this oil is what the cancer killer, and I'm hoping in my case it'll help with my neurological issues. To make that, you need much more cannabis. So I would say, long answer short, in Illinois the law is 2.5 ounces every 14 days, I believe. That would be sufficient, but that would be cutting it close for a lot of patients, myself included. But it's just a plant. I mean, it's like having a war on tomatoes. It's silly. There's the most dangerous thing about cannabis is getting caught with it. I just don't feel like that's living in the land of the free, and that's what I fought for. And it's not okay. Patients deserve access.
Questions for the witness, Representative Zaire?
To the court, please.
Go ahead.
Thank you for your service.
Absolutely, it's an honor to serve.
And my heart goes out to you because chronic
Sorry, I do little dances.
it's okay, yeah, because I know some stuff gets in your adipose tissue and,
It's weird,
It's
and the
there.
doctors can't figure it out, so.
yeah, oh, God bless you. When you go to Oregon,
Mhm.
and you mentioned that you gotta have it pure without herbicides or pesticides.
Organic is what I try to find.
So then you can find it there.
Yeah, you can find it there. It's
Okay.
growing it, and when you grow for patients, you have to grow different than for the recreational market because patients are sensitive. I mean, especially if you've been a patient that's been on these prescription pills, you can't take another chemical.
And so your gastro issues are alleviated
I
for
can,
the most part, or
I
is
can
it just a
completely
thing?
manage if I could get the right strain. There's over 5,000 different strains of cannabis. So
Yeah.
each strain works like, I don't know, like a Xanax would work better for this than it would for heart disease.
Okay.
So same concept. I can almost completely get rid of all of my symptoms when I'm on the right strain.
Okay.
And of course that would be vaporizing, and I don't smoke it because it's a waste of money.
And I guess I'm trying to separate the availability of medical marijuana in Missouri. And I know the criticism will be able to grow it, will be, one step closer to recreational. And that's what I just hear people say.
Absolutely, and people are afraid of recreational, and I don't really understand why. I mean, if truthfully, I mean, this is the way the military taught me. When I'm afraid of something, I should research it, I should figure it out, and I should face it. And there's nothing scary about marijuana. There is nothing dangerous about marijuana, and even if it's recreational, so what? That means that we have more jobs. The Show Me State needs something to show the world besides the hate that happened in Ferguson, and marijuana could really be that for Missouri. I mean, sorry, I feel very passionate about this.
Very intelligent.
Why, thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
I'd like to ask the sponsor of the bill. You mentioned that the title of the bill mentions penalty. Is that penalty for not doing the right thing as growing it? What are those penalties? What's illegal and what's the penalty?
Well, I think we have someone that will speak on that.
Oh, all right.
Clarify
Okay.
that for you. And they
Sure.
can, rather than taking
Thank
any
you.
more time.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Further questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony and for your service.
Thank you so much, guys.
Further testimony in favor?
Hello, I'm John Payne. I'm the Executive Director of Show Me Cannabis. I want to thank the committee and Chairman Haar for hearing this bill and Representative English for introducing it. We enthusiastically endorse this bill. It is a very free market, competitive approach to the medical cannabis market. Competition ensures lower prices, patient access, and consumer satisfaction with firms. And this is particularly important when dealing with the medical cannabis patients, some of our most vulnerable in society. Now, we should certainly regulate the medical cannabis market industry as we change our laws to legally allow it. However, a free competitive market is not antithetical to that goal. In fact, a competition is a necessary element of a well-regulated market, because when you have competition, that is what's going to keep out the bad actors. That's what's going to allow people to select from a range of firms and find the firm that is actually providing them with the services that they want, and not people that are acting in bad faith. Thank you.
Questions for the witness? Yeah. Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Further witnesses in favor?
I can somewhat address the question earlier about penalties. Most of that is actually, I believe, left up to the department. The department would draft a lot of the regulations, and then there would be penalties for breaking those rules. And also that would go to addressing some of the problems that we would have with doctors who might write recommendations for something that, if people weren't actually ill, that they were getting recommendations illegally, that would allow people to be punished under that. And so I think that's actually how you would deal with that problem, not by saying, okay, here's this exhaustive list of qualifying conditions. We would still want to leave that up to the doctor-patient relationship. But then if doctors were going outside of that and just writing recommendations for anybody, then we would let the prosecution, the lawyer look into that and prosecute if they were just writing it to whomever.
Questions for the witness, Representative Hicks?
Brief inquiry.
Go ahead.
Just a quick question here. If we had to put this up on a pedestal, would this one sit higher than 800 in your mind?
In my estimation, it would, yes. Because of the fact that it allows free entry into the market, relatively speaking, that's a big point for me, because I think, you know, this is a state that we're definitely a right-leaning state. We like competition. I think 800, it's well-meaning. It's definitely something that is, you know, it creates much more access than we have now, which is virtually none. But nonetheless, I think it arbitrarily just caps the number of firms at 30. It also kind of couples cultivation and dispensaries, which there's no real reason to do that. I don't know of any other state that does that. And so if we allow the free market to play out better, I think that's going to be what's advantageous for the whole state. Otherwise, I think we're going to be sitting here 10 years down the road talking about the Medical Cannabis Deregulation Act. So I don't think we want to start the industry out as some kind of oligopoly.
Well, I think one of the reasons we have some of the on 800 so strict is those we do want to try to control it so we don't end up with, you know, a bunch of horses running wild as far as that goes. But I thank you for that, because I've had a lot of questions recently, and lately people are asking me the differences, and that's why I was glad I could make it in on the last part of the hearing. Sorry for that, by the way. But you know, the last witness just made perfect sense, which I've heard 3 or 4 different times now in the last couple of days, and that is that she wouldn't even mind it for recreational purposes. And when I first heard that, I was a little like, whoa, well, why do you say that? And every answer I've gotten is alcohol's a recreational use, and hundreds of people die from it a day. And they're not dying from using marijuana. So, thank you for your testimony, and thank you very much for answering my question. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Would you agree with me that on the whole, Missouri is a fairly conservative state?
I would agree with that.
And so I think the dilemma that many on this committee, many in the House and Senate have is that if we're going to make a move to allow medical marijuana in the state, we don't want to overstep and kill the chances for any legislation moving forward. I think the points that you and some of the witnesses have made are very well taken, but again, I think there are a lot of other factors in trying to move something forward in the state that may make 800 more palatable bill than this particular one.
I understand those points, but I think also conservative is also meaning favoring limited government and small government. And so I think that, you know, ultimately we have to think about is this the model that we want to pursue long run? And you know, I think that this is the better model long run. I understand that the political sensibilities in the short run may be something other than that, but I think when we look, you know, 10 years out, I think this is definitely the better model.
Further questions? Representative Cross.
Listen to you speak, okay. As you mentioned, 800 is much more limited than this current bill we're talking about, the Representative English is pursuing. And I know you comment about the free market and what have you. It would, with competition, would create a better source of revenue for the state of Missouri, if I'm hearing you right, sir. Basically, we could get rid of, would you agree that we get rid of the word medical? Is that what you're saying? Because you wouldn't need any doctors. I mean, if you got somebody who's chronically or who's ill, you would have access to it. The accessibility would be much better as far as your home grows and what have you. Am I hearing you right?
No, that's not necessarily what I'm proposing. I mean, I think that we could have that discussion, but that's not what's being proposed under this bill. What we're saying, what this bill is saying, is that the doctor would have discretion to recommend medical cannabis to anyone with a debilitating illness, and that's defined more broadly in this bill than it is in HB 800.
You know, I think I'm missing something then, because you know 800 is much more restrictive than this one is right here. Regarding the free market, I'm thinking, you know, the amount of revenue that would come into the state of Missouri. Am I missing something there?
Well, what I'm referring to there primarily is the fact that in HB 800 there are only 30 firms that would be allowed to enter the market.
That's correct. They'd be regulated.
Right. But there are ways of there's regulating strictly for the number of firms, and there's also regulating just for how those firms behave. And so, you know, I think we're better off trying to regulate the behavior of the firms rather than strictly just the number of the firms. And so I think it would be, what this does is it allows more firms to enter, but we can then regulate the behavior of those firms. And I think actually the interplay of the market then is advantageous. It works in your favor then, because that is going to create a natural sort of regulation, that customers are going to drive out the bad actors.
I see. Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Munsell.
To inquire. So you said that the doctor, under these circumstances, the doctors could recommend it, but not prescribe?
Yes, that's a distinction that is in there because of federal law, and that's
So they could recommend it, but if I had a headache and I went to the doctor and said, would you recommend that I could take marijuana for a headache, then it'd be okay?
If your headache qualifies as a debilitating condition, if it is a recurring, constant headache that interferes with your daily functioning, then I think that would be appropriate.
Okay, if that's the case, then how can this bill be better than 800? Because 800 specifies it has to be for specific ailments. What you're saying is a doctor could recommend marijuana for anything.
Well, let me give you an example.
My hair was dirty or something.
Well, I think you'd be hard pressed to prove if a prosecutor brought that case that your hair being dirty was a debilitating medical
So then if
condition.
we did this, and then we got a lot more cases. I just think the whole idea is just a big mistake, and it's going to be a situation where you're just going to have a lot of lawsuits, you're going to have a lot of law enforcement, people confused on, dealing with people who have marijuana and distinguishing one versus the other, and the judges are going to be very confused, and I just think it's could create a lot of problems.
I understand your concerns. Let me give you one example though of where HB 800 kind of I think runs off the tracks and this doesn't. Is that so because the conditions are listed out so very specifically in HB 800 now, if a person had let's say epilepsy and they experience seizures on a daily basis, they could qualify under HB 800 for medical cannabis. But then if they had the same exact symptoms, but because of a traumatic brain injury, because that is not listed as a qualifying condition in HB 800, they would not qualify. Even if a doctor believed, and even if the science showed that cannabis would be equally effective in treating it, they would not qualify. But they would qualify under this bill because it would leave it more to the discretion of the doctor. The fact is that there are just literally thousands of diagnoses out there. And so there are some things that you just can't list every single diagnosis without your bill becoming, hundreds of pages long.
Well, I have friends that have smoked marijuana, and they just say, hey, it makes me feel a lot better. Well, gosh, if I want to feel a lot better, I go there, would you recommend that I smoke marijuana just to make me feel better? If that's the case, would that not be really a very, very short step away from just making it recreational use?
Well, I would agree if that was the law, that would be a very short step away from recreational use. Yes.
Representative Hanson.
Just a quick question.
Go ahead.
The two ladies that testified here, would both of them qualify for medical marijuana under this bill?
I believe that yes.
Based on the conditions they described?
Yes.
I mean, her young son probably would, but the other young lady?
Yes, I believe so.
So they would qualify under 800 too, right?
Yes.
So, what's the purpose?
Well, I will point out that there was a woman that came and testified before the committee for 800 that sent an email earlier. She's from Springfield, actually I believe from Representative Harr's district, who no longer qualifies under the current language of 800. I believe she has stenosis of the spine. I can't remember all her specific ailments, but she no longer qualifies under the current language.
I would also say, I think the second witness with the and I can't even pronounce the gastrointestinal issues, I'm not sure that she would qualify under House Bill 800. I'm not sure that's one of the diagnoses that was listed. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Representative Hicks.
I don't want to keep referring back to House Bill 800, but I just want to bring to the committee's attention, and maybe the witnesses for that matter, but I just recently had a conversation with a friend of mine, and one of the parts that I like about Representative English's bill here is the growing side to it. And I was not for it in the beginning, and he knows that. I talked to him about his bill, and I said, I like your bill, I just don't think we should be able to grow it. So I did a little more research, like someone else has taught me to do. But I talked to a friend of mine whose mother had cancer. She passed away last year. Some of you might have read about it in my report, but she was smoking marijuana. A woman she was a union member for 40 years, retired, she never even smoked a cigarette in her life until she started to get cancer, and that's where the marijuana part came in. I had no idea, though, that she had ever done that. And I knew her. She helped me with my campaign every day. I knew her. Her son is my best friend. But he just recently shared this information with me. And he said he came home one day and he caught her kind of like hiding doing it. And she was very embarrassed. But the biggest thing she was embarrassed for, because she had lived such a clean life, was purchasing it from someone or asking someone to get it for her. There's a lot of people out there that would like to use it, and I found this out recently, that would like to be able to use it and still have not a single soul on this earth know they're doing it because of the perception that people make on them. That is why now I support your bill 100%. Now I still definitely support House Bill 800. I'm going to vote for it all day long, definitely, but I know we had a conversation and I wanted you to know that after speaking with my friend and he told me the story of his mother that I had no idea, and I've known this lady a long time, and what she was doing, basically closet smoking, I guess as you call it. But then as I started looking into it, as I testified on 800, I have many friends from past and present military use that PTSD is a big deal on. And these are those same individuals, a couple of them that would never admit it to me, have now admitted to me after I said that story to them, that they too are very embarrassed. They have children, they have wives, they have great jobs, this and that, but they sneak it for that simple fact. And it has kept them, their jobs and their sanity. Sure. I know we have one witness to testify on that.
Further questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Next, to testify in favor? Seeing none, anyone for informational purposes? Seeing none, that will close the hearing on House Bill 930, and we will adjourn.
In closing, may I
Yeah.
briefly? As you heard very shortly, and I do again appreciate your time, and I will give each one of you a copy in your mailbox of the difference between 800 and 930. But as you heard, we don't have a problem with a doctor prescribing 13 different medications for pain or different chronic illnesses, or for children, different types of medication. And I think this is a fix much better than HB 800. Thank you very much.
With the same care.
Oh, thank you. Oh, just a minute and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Let me kill this.